This is a podcast from Rover.
Hi, I'm Dayna, a former TV presenter and radio host. But to Luca and Darcy, I'm known as... Mom! Maybe one day they'll realise I used to be cool. Being a mum has been my greatest joy and biggest headache. It's taken me to playgroups and parent gatherings, mainly for cake and coffee, but also to meet parents and swap stories, which reminded me I'm not alone and the things we face are normal. And that's what this podcast, Parents We've Met, is all about.
I don't think I would be a Silver Fern today if it wasn't for that mindset of one day at a time, one day at a time. And it's probably the same in life as well. One day, one task.
I don't think we're meant to do this parent gig alone, and I knew I needed a bit of a coach to help me along the way. And that's where Jenny comes in.
Oh, big job, Dayna.
I read Jenny's book, KFC, which at first I thought was going to be a mean recipe, but instead I found what I was really needing. I needed to know how to be kind, firm and calm. Yes, another serving of that, thanks Jenny.
Every parent has their own story and their own struggles, so join us as we chat through the magic and mess of this parenting gig.
Ka pai, Jenny. Welcome to Parents We've Met. In this episode, Jenny and I had the privilege to chat with Silver Fern Sulu Fitzpatrick right before she headed off to South Africa for her final Netball World Cup. Sulu shared about some of the highs she's had in New Zealand netball, but also opened up about how having twins as a teenager and facing hard times and knockbacks had her pushing through to not only overcome challenges, but to triumph on an international stage, and how that has inspired her to give back in a new way. I also love picking the brain of a sporting legend to find out how we can support our own kids to have fun and flourish in their own sport. So let me introduce you to Sulu. Tulapalava and welcome. So lovely to have you on the couch and sharing your day with us. So thank you for hanging out. Now, there's been a lot of change for you recently with you stepping away from your professional role in netball. Can you share a little bit about what led to that decision?
So I had an interview last year for a Mother's Day story, and I just randomly off the cuff mentioned that it was time for me to finish up soon. You know, I have the kids that need more attention from mum, more time from mum, and then they just rolled with it and announced my retirement. So I guess that they did it for me a year early. So in a way, I guess it was a blessing. It's given me time to really have some gratitude and enjoy the moment. And also, I guess, push me because it's always hard for sports people to leave something that's been part of their life. And so I think it's a good thing, and I'm looking forward to what's next.
At first, were you like, hang on, I still have time, people?
I was a little bit upset, more so because I honestly thought it was a Mother's Day story, and then it turned. But I guess that's just the way it is, and like I said, it was meant to be that way. It's given me a whole year, and I don't think many sports people announce their retirement a year out, but it's meant that I can put things in place, prepare things, life outside of sport, to at least make the transition a bit smoother. So not many people have that chance. Some people leave sport, they don't have a choice, whether it's through injury or non-selection, whereas I've actually had the opportunity to have 12 months to get everything in order. So very grateful. Yeah.
You're stepping out on top as well. Is there one moment that will stick out, from the rest when you look back on your time?
I'd probably say winning the premiership for the first time with the Northern Mystics. We hadn't won for, I think, 23 years. We've never won a premiership. It had eluded us. And so to do that at home, it was then Vector Arena with all our family there. It was just such a cool moment. And I guess come full circle, I started my career with the Mystics. And it's really nice to finish with them this season.
I actually saw that interview when you won and you were crying. And I think you even said something like, oh, I'm doing my ugly tears. Like you just couldn't hold it back. It was just naturally flowing.
Yes, very ugly cries. And honestly, through the years, Sky have managed to grab some beautiful moments of my ugly face, doing the haka or crying in speeches. But I guess that's pure joy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping in 10 years from now, or when I'm a bit older, I'll look back and see it with some love, despite the ugly facials. But remember, that ugly cry comes from all the time and energy that goes in, not just from us, but also from, more importantly, our family, the sacrifices that our kids and partners, husbands and parents make for us to do what we love.
That's beautiful. Sulu, this is a parenting podcast, so we would love to know a little bit about your family. So can you tell us sort of ages, stages, kind of where you're at right now?
Yes, I'd love to. So me and my husband, we have 4 between us. We have a blended family. Currently, we have 3 9-year-olds and an 8-year-old. One girl who's the boss of them all, who's one of my twins. And so life's a bit busy when they're all together. But actually, in a weird way, I'd say probably helpful for us that they're all at the same age and stage, especially, I guess, balancing. My husband's a builder and I'm netball, so we're quite busy. So it's quite good because they can all hang out with each other and look after each other.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and so I'd love to know how you navigate some of the interesting dynamics that a blended family brings. I mean, having 3 children the same age and the competition would be there, but you'd also be discovering how unique they all are as well. So how do you navigate some of those challenges?
In all honesty, like co-parenting is probably is very challenging. I guess balancing being a mum, but also respecting that the other parent has their own way and not enforcing or feeling like your way is the only way. It's very challenging.
Very.
Especially, I guess, as an athlete, there's certain ways that you like to do things. And as a proud Samoan woman, there's ways I would like things to be done. But understanding that, you know, in a co-parenting relationship, there's different ways to love your children and to raise your children. Probably also is that balance of, I guess, we don't like to call them stepchildren, we call them all our kids, but making sure that they feel loved and don't feel any different. I guess for myself, being adopted, I understand what that feels like and to feel out of place, and we would never want any of them to feel that way or feel like one is treated better than the other. So if anything, we treat them more strictly. I guess our boys, they live, during the term, they're up in Kaitaia, so it's quite hard for them in terms of not getting as much time with us and their dad. So we make sure that we make trips up there to make sure that they feel that they're loved and never feel like, you know, they're any different to the other 2.
Beautiful. And as a family, what do you do for fun? What are some of the things that go on?
Fun. They all love to play outside, so sport is easy for them. Because they're all the same age, they can compete. My daughter likes to think she's the strongest and smartest out of all of them, so she's always running the games. We like playing board games and just spending time, I guess, because for both of us, we're quite busy as parents. It's really important when we are all together that it's quality time and not just sitting around the screen, that we're actually doing things and they feel like we're giving them that attention. So that's probably one thing that I'm really looking forward to with transitioning out of netball, is to having more energy, because it's so hard when you're tired from training. You know, the kids are wanting to show you things or for you to do things, and the last thing you feel like doing is running around with them. You just want to sit on the couch and just like turn the screen on here, watch this movie. So I'm looking forward to just having more energy to do those things with them, and just being more of a mum.
Awesome.
I feel like soon you're going to be like taking them up mountains and all sorts of like, Mum, can we just play a board game again?
Might take them for trainings, but they're very independent, which I think sport has done for them, because they've had to, you know, they're used to having their own schedule or getting things done and understanding that their parents are busy. So it's good for them, just balancing that with love to make sure that they know that we care about everything that's going on in their lives, and, you know, they can just be kids.
We laugh, but you might really miss training soon, and there might be like a family boot camp sort of kicking off.
No, that was during COVID. They were my training partners, and I think I gave them like trauma from that, because they were every morning they were training with me, like my timers. We had family circuits, and that was probably for a good 5 or 6 months. And since then, they've sworn that they'll never be my training partners again.
You're part of a big Samoan family. What was your home like growing up? You mentioned that you were adopted within your family. So what did home look like for you?
Home was full of people. The house was never empty. Spent so much time at my grandparents' house, and that house was a house for everyone. As an adult now, so many people have told me that they lived at that house at one point in time, but as a kid you don't know any different. So I was just used to having so many people, family and friends around. And so I guess with that you learn to be around people and to balance different dynamics. And so that's probably why I love team sports, and also understand you learn to share. You learn that, if one person has something, everyone has something. And so those values I hold really strongly today, and really grateful to my grandparents and parents.
I think because I'm half Samoan, there wasn't the same sort of responsibility to me around the house. I got to kind of, oh no, it's all good, the others will do some of the things. But being the eldest in a family, there was a lot more, especially as the girl, responsibility. Was there more responsibility on you in your home and looking after kids and...
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I guess because being the eldest grandchild in New Zealand, that's just a given. I was a bit of a black sheep, so often my sister helped in that role. I would probably say she acts more like the eldest. But, small things like, might be a group of 10 cousins together and you make sure that everyone's looked after, everyone's fed, no one's crying, everyone's getting along. And so I guess in that way, that's probably where I developed my leadership, was just being surrounded by so many younger people and family, and understanding that it's not just about you. You've got to make sure that everyone is in a good place.
I'd love to know how you feel about being the black sheep in the family. What was that?
It probably comes back to feeling a little bit out of place growing up, because obviously I was adopted, I looked different, but it was strange because it was my own cousin, so we're still family, so it's not like they weren't related. And I knew from when I was young, I always knew, so it was never kept a secret from me. But I just always had that feeling of feeling out of place, and so I would do different things to, I guess, fill that void or try and feel better about myself rather than just be open and talk about it. And so that probably took not until my early or mid-20s that I really, I guess, work on that or realise the impact it was having on life, not just me, but my kids.
Wow. You made the Silver Ferns for the first time when you were just 19 years old, and from the outside it would have looked like you were living the dream. What was it like on the inside? How was that time in your life?
Yeah, so that's probably the peak of when I was really starting to feel like that mask was starting to come off. I had just finished school. From the outside, everyone thought life was good, but my family knew that things weren't so good, like missing family events, missing birthdays because I was wanting to go out with my friends, prioritising people and things that did not need to have my time or energy, and taking away from what really mattered. And so that then impacted my career. So I debuted at 19, I had one test, and then I was dropped within months from the national side. And I didn't end up making it back in for another 8 years. So that would probably tell you where I was at in life. And I'm really grateful that happened to me, because I don't think it would have really hit home. And I think a lot of teenagers go through that, where, you trying to figure out who you are. It's a big identity thing, especially culturally for people who are, you put your head down, you don't talk about things, everything is all good all the time, especially with social media. I feel sorry for our kids. It's a lot harder as well now. Everyone's trying to keep up appearances or look like they're living the best life. So it's really good that there's been a shift to, I guess, speak more openly about what's really happening and the struggles we go through.
Everyone's journey to becoming a parent looks really different. My nana was 18 when she had my mum. My mum had me at 18, and then I totally mixed things up and I had kids at 35. I think I had done the parenting with my little siblings. For you, what was it like when you found out you were pregnant, and how were your family around that?
My parents at the time, well, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure my parents thought I was a virgin. Like many families, they believed in, waiting till you're married. But obviously I had other ideas. And so it was definitely a shock, not just to me, but to my whole family. I was in the middle of my first season away from home. I was down in Dunedin and realised that I was pregnant. And so even just telling my mum was... if anyone knows my mum, it was not an easy task, but I flew home, let her know, and she was actually really loving. She cried and she felt sorry for me, just probably knowing that I wasn't ready and understanding where I was at in life, but supported me from then on. And then to see that there were 2 heartbeats, that was, to be honest, I think I was in shock right from the 9 months to even giving birth. I don't think it really hit home that I was becoming or had become a mum. Yeah.
Wow. As an adult, I went to a counsellor to look at trauma I'd faced in my childhood, and she talked about imagining me as a little girl and visualising putting my arms around her and letting her know that she was okay and good days were ahead. If you could go back, you've just found out you're pregnant, what would you say to yourself now?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably it's going to be okay. You're loved, you're surrounded by love, you've got a big village to help raise the kids, you'll be okay. But focus on what's best for the kids. That's probably the biggest thing. And I probably took a few years for that message to hit home.
Sulu, a lot of people have hard starts and they get stuck along the way. What was the thing that's helped you to face your struggles, your battles, and push through to be able to move forward?
Definitely family support. I know that if it wasn't for my village, I would not be where I am today. And I know that that's not the case for everyone. Not everyone has, like I said, I have such a big village that there's so many people that have been able to help me, not just in my netball career, but more importantly as a mum, and to help raise and nurture my kids. Like, I know I can't take that for granted. Also, I guess resilience is a big thing, and my career hasn't been like a fairy tale, but I've just every day just turn up, go again, another day, one day at a time. And so that's something I've learned because it was such a struggle. And I don't think I would be a Silver Fern today if it wasn't for that mindset of one day at a time, one day at a time. I've seen so many people in netball or in sport that give up when they're right there. They don't realise how close they are, but because they're not able to see beyond that day or that moment or that failure. And it's probably the same in life as well. So just one day at a time, just get up, one day, one task.
I love that concept because it comes through in parenting, where often with your kids and you're tired and you have to face a lot of struggles and challenges, but sometimes just showing up, saying, I've got this day ahead of me and this is the day I'm going to be there and I'll engage with my kids. But when we shoot out too far and think of the weeks and the months and the years and can't wait for something to be over, we can kind of lose our balance. So I love that concept of, just living one day at a time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know what it's like with kids, like they can be full on, overwhelming, but if you're able to just, like you said, show up, even if you might not be at your best every day. And I, to be honest, during my netball career, I'm often not at my best. I'm very tired, cranky, but just being there, and even if it's just one thing that I show them that I'm paying attention, or one thing that I'm showing them that I'm proud of them or that I love them, then at least I know for that day that they've received that, or that you're able to give that. That's the biggest thing.
I love to when I have days where I'm grumpy, I'm like, okay, they've gone to bed, tomorrow's a new day, and I get to try that all over again.
Well, it's forever. We signed the deal, we've got no choice.
Exactly. I love your reflection and looking back at, the struggles with netball and having the twins young and all these things you had to face to overcome. Is that what's taking you to study now and to get into social work, this idea of helping other people through it?
Yes, and I guess when you've like a black sheep, or you've made so many mistakes and you know the struggle, you understand what it's like to not be at your best, you want to find ways to help people through that. I definitely would never want to stop people from struggling or stop people from going through adversity, because I honestly believe it's made me a better person and a better mum, but you want to be able to support them or to help them navigate through that, or I want them to go through challenges and adversity. I don't want to stop it, but I want them to know that through it all, that mum's there, or mum and dad are there, we've got you, and we'll support you, and if you need help, we'll help you find a way. But it's very hard to pull back and just allow the kids to find their way and to learn in their way.
I think you've touched on something that really is challenging for parents, and that is to let their children struggle. And it might be a small disappointment that they are not going to rescue them from. The research shows that resilience is born out of struggle plus kind of emotional support, which you've just said, as long as you know someone's there with you, you can handle it, but it's when you're on your own. I think that's so hard. So I love how you've wrapped that up. And for yourself, Sulu, what have you learnt from the struggles that you've had to face?
Being a good person and doing things for the right reason. It may not pay off in that moment, but it'll always pay off in the long term. Not necessarily directly towards you, but it might be towards someone you love or for the bigger picture. You know, so many people nowadays, they want instant gratification, and it's really hard to see beyond that moment or that disappointment and failure in that time. I'm learning to understand that when you do good things with a good heart and for the right reasons, that they'll unfold in ways that you just never know, and it'll always be for good. And I truly believe that, and I really want to instill that in my children.
I was on Google and it came up, one of the most searched questions was, do you have tattoos? Which I was like, what? Why are people wanting to know this? And then I realised that you had had your, is it called malu?
Yes.
So your traditional Samoan tattoos, which run the length of your thighs, and you went over to Samoa and got those done, which is pretty amazing. What do those tattoos mean for you?
For me, it's massively about identity. For so long, I felt in between spaces, whether it was with my siblings, my parents, culture, you know, being in a Western world, but also being Samoan, so always feeling in between. In sport, never quite finding my place in a team, and so I guess it's a symbol of I am Samoan and I'm proud to be Samoan, and nobody can take that away from me, and I'm part of something that's bigger than me. So I don't own the tattoos, but I'm a custodian of them, and I belong to a family of proud Samoan people. I'm really proud of my culture, the good in our culture, and it's about representing being a good Samoan woman, and that's about being nurturing, protective, a leader, serving, and all those things.
You know, I'm Samoan, and actually I used to always try and justify my amount of Samoanness. I'd always go, I'm just under half. And one of my friends who's Māori was like, no, you're just Samoan. And I was like, that was huge for me. And I don't know the language, and you know, I look at all my cousins my age and younger, and they don't know the language, and I see a lot of us struggling to connect with our culture. For someone who's been on that journey yourself, have you got any tips of where to start or what's worked well for you?
Probably the same as you, Dayna, like in terms of the language barrier and feeling that means you're not Samoan enough, or feeling embarrassed, you know, when you say you're Samoan or people know you're Samoan and they assume or expect that you should be able to speak the language, or you're you're expected to speak on behalf of Samoan people. And especially, I guess, being in sport, it's a good platform to be able to share your views and to, I guess, reach out to the public. But when your own Samoan people are looking at you and wondering, why can't you speak your own language, and yet you're telling everyone you're Samoan, that's been a struggle. And I've come to the place where I'm comfortable and understand why. Like, you know, our people came here for opportunities and to make a better life for their families, and that doesn't mean that you're not Samoan. I'm actually currently enrolled in an online Samoan class, and that's not about wanting to fit in or feeling that I'm not Samoan enough. It's the timing's right, and I would like to learn our language for our kids, and I know that if I expect them to learn their language, that I need to do it too. I feel a bit awkward, and it's quite nerve-wracking, but it's nice being around other people who feel the same. So I think our online class has about 20 of us that all have similar journeys in terms of either their parents are immigrants, or they've lost the language through, I guess, being away from their homeland, never had time to learn because they were busy in school. All have similar stories, but all wanting to reconnect and, I guess, reclaim that language for the right reasons, and that's to share that treasure with our kids.
I remember I've only been to Samoa once, and I went around the family plantation, and I come from my family quite into bodybuilding, and there was all these like makeshift weights and stuff, and it was all these little connections. But I just stood there, and it's where my dad was born, and just felt the weight of that. And when my dad died 2 years ago, I've had even more of a yearning to know more and to be more connected. What traditions do you have in your home that maybe incorporates your Samoan heritage too? Sunday
lunch every Sunday, so we always go over to my parents and Nana. that's massive for us. It's a time to reconnect. Sunday's the start of the week for us. So people go to church, come home for lunch. We all come together. There's like 30 of us around the table, and just a time to reconnect. And I guess it prioritises family. For most cultures, like families are the most important thing, and food is a big part of our culture as well. We like to eat, and I don't think it's about the food, it's about the connection, it's about sharing, showing love by sharing food or by serving each other. And so that's really important. And then also sport is a big part of, I guess, because back home they're so active. They're like back at the homeland, they're, like you said, on the plantations, they're walking to school, like it's just part of everyday life. And so being active for our children and our family is really important, not just for the physical well-being, but also more importantly for the mental well-being.
And my husband's Australian, and when we first were married and cousins would come over, he was like, man, they've been here for hours. And I'm like, that's the way you do it. I think we have this culture where we like pop in for 2 hours or a visit. But I do love that, within the culture, it's like, no, we're here for the day.
Yeah. And as long as you want, there's no set schedule, no timing. And you just, go off the feel, which is nice.
Being an athlete who's worked with some of the best coaches in the country since you were quite young, what are some of the things you've taken from those coaches?
Nolene, I've learnt from her to focus on your strengths. So she's a big believer in not trying to change who we are, that we just bring our best selves, both our goods and also our flaws. She encourages us to be really authentic and embrace it. And it allows other people to feel safe in that space. People like Yvette, my coach in Wellington, she really prioritises education. So understanding that both to be your best self, it's about learning and always wanting to be better. And then from my current coach, Tia, is to understand that there's a bigger picture, learning to know yourself, but also understanding your place in the world and how you can help people and serve something that's bigger than you.
I read some recent stats around kids in sports, and the number one reason they drop out is due to pressure from parents. Do you have any advice for parents on how we can support our kids in sport?
Probably the first thing is let kids be kids. Like, they're not going to be an All Black or a Silver Fern or a Black Fern at 9 years old, so you don't need to worry about that. It's not about winning or losing as well at that time. The most important thing at that age is they're learning skills, not just physical skills, but they're learning skills of how to relate with people, how to navigate losses, or all of those skills are the things that are actually going to help them if they ever want to be professional or that's their path. And I think sometimes some parents get lost in it, probably through their own competitiveness. It's not even about the kids, I would say. It's more about their own whatever's going on for them. And you see it often, like even sometimes for me, I get caught up in a game and I'll realise, actually, this is not about me. This is about my daughter. She's 9 years old. She's just here to have fun. And not, I guess, putting my expectations or pressures on her. And I really don't mind what they do. I'm not expecting them to want to be athletes. If anything, they're probably sick of sport. But I just encourage them to be brave, to try things. And just allow the kids to have fun. Like, that's the biggest thing. And everything else, the skills they'll pick up will translate whether they stay in sport or not.
Great advice.
One of the things we do as parents is we take some of the things that our parents did and we bring them into our family, and we drop some. We think, no, I'm not going to do that in my family. Have you got things that you have intentionally dropped and brought into your own family?
I guess one of the things that I always said I wasn't going to do was my mum was quite strict, and I saw it as a negative, but I've only realised now it was out of love. It's probably a big thing is discipline, and that's something I'm going to carry forward from Mum. And discipline, not only does it help you, I guess, for that moment in time, but it's a skill that you can carry in sport, in education, in life, that I've realised now. Like, I wouldn't be a professional athlete if it wasn't for the discipline that she instilled from us from being kids. Probably something I would not necessarily drop, but something I would add, different to Mum, is just more of the open conversations about things that aren't usually talked about, whether it's struggles or mental health or things like that. It wasn't a normal thing. And so that's probably something I'd add, just to allow the kids to express openly and share those feelings from a young age, so that when life gets a bit harder as they get older, that they're not afraid to share it.
Beautiful.
I hate to think of this, but one day your kids will be leaving home.
Yeah.
Polynesian family might be a little bit later, because I feel like it's those that can hang around a little bit longer, which is good. And they're going to have their backpacks full of all the lessons you've taught them, the values that you've instilled in them. Thinking of them all, what's your big dream for them?
When they leave, my big dream is that they know themselves, that they're comfortable in their skin, that they're brave to, I guess, live as authentically as possible, but also that they embrace the things that aren't so good about themselves, and they're able to understand that and see the good in others. Yeah, I just want them to be good people first and foremost, and also understand that there are things that they're not good at. I do not want them to go out thinking they're the best thing in the world and that they're great at everything. Like, I want them to be real, but also understand that just being kind to people and give everything their best. Even if they're not the best at it, just give their best.
Awesome. There were so many great takeaways, and I loved how she talked about struggle and actually not wanting to protect our kids, from all the hard stuff, but being there and being available. And it made me think about last weekend I took Luca to a playground, and I watched as he was trying to make new friends, and you want to go in and help them to navigate and protect them from disappointment. But I had to stand back and just watch, knowing that he knows I'm here if he gets disappointed or upset by any kid. So I could totally relate to what she was saying.
It's so true. It's one of the hardest things I think parents will face, is letting their kids have some struggle and just waiting it out, not rescuing them. And it's with a good heart that we do this, but I think we have to acknowledge it's really hard not to fix things or make them easier for them. But I think when our hearts are set on, I really want to help my child become resilient and strong, we can do it, but we kind of need that support for ourselves when we are not rushing in to save the day or to fix it quickly for them. And I think children are really going to thank us when they can manage big feelings and know, oh, mum's here, dad's here, somebody understands, but they're allowing me to grow in this moment of struggle.
One word that came up a lot was discipline. And I think as an athlete, that must just be one of the key words that she knows every day for her. But it was really cool to think of that, as a parent, how we can help our kids, to be disciplined in life.
Yeah, I don't think we need to see discipline as a negative. It used to once feel like discipline meant the same as punishment, but it's actually loving training. And when we require our children to do what they said they were going to do, if they've signed up for a team and they don't want to go to practice, we're actually going to require them to be fair about it and to turn up and show up and do some of the things that are really hard. So it's got that side to it which just says, to be honest, to be truthful, to come to the practice, to do what's often hard when we don't feel like doing it. That's a great word to embody in our families, is to have a disciplined approach to life.
And I suppose, both those things, resilience, but discipline as well.
Yeah, sometimes life is hard and we don't feel like doing it. And we all know what that feels like. But I think when we model it for our kids and we show up or do things that are hard, that's really good for them to see. And we also should expect our kids to, show up and do the hard things as well.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Parents We've Met. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast project of ours. We are loving putting it together for you. Now, we are all about supporting parents on their parenting journey. So if you'd like access to more resources, head over to our website, parentingplace.nz. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're enjoying what we're doing here, we'd love if you could share it on social media or rate and review it on this app.
Rover. Music, radio, podcasts.